if this does happen or doesn't happen, if you do support it, if you don't support it, if you actively signal for it or not. What happens if you send your Bitcoin during activation? What happens if it's not compliant? If you send Bitcoin, it's not compliant, but then with BIP 110, but then BIP 110 becomes the longest chain. What happens to your transaction? I think there's potential here of that people aren't really looking at, like potential risks that people are not considering here that could be real, even if their likelihood is small potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Forrest. I mean, it's something that you don't want the solution to be worse than the problem, right? And so that can be the risk that you run at times, and that's where the economic actors in the system, which are people who hold Bitcoin, miners, and the node runners. The people that are really entrenched in the system are going to be the ones that are really in on that. So, I mean, if you want to get really active, I mean, if anyone here is not running a node and looking really going down these rabbit holes, you probably should, because like you said, long term, it's probably it's going to work out the way it should. We've had things in the past. We kind of look back. We're like, okay, whether it's the Taproot or different things where it's like, like, was that the right way to go? Like, are these things the right thing to do? And there's always a contentious at the time. You don't know how they're going to play out. And that's why you do have to really, come in with, seeing many different sides, many different avenues here. And unfortunately, there is some time. But at the end of the day, the market is going to decide what ends up happening. The thing I don't like is like kicking people out of chat rooms, right? Stifling debate, things of that nature. That's when my spidey sense goes up, when we're stifling debate. I'm all for people having debate and the system, decentralizing, hardening itself, and having these debates. That's totally fine. But when we're kicking people off of things like what was happening, a year ago or whatever, that's the thing where my spidey sense, it reminds me of Bill de Blasio in New York offering cheeseburgers for people to go get things injected into their body. Like just like stuff like that. Like that kind of stuff makes me like, whoa, that makes my skin crawl. So hopefully we can, have actual debates going forward in the coming days, weeks, months, whatever, because you don't want the solution to be worse than the problem. Are there things we've been doing for 10 years that all of a sudden we're changing all of a sudden and ramming down everyone's throats? Yeah, there are things, but now are we, is BIP 110 the way to go with it? It's like there's these different elements that people are still really learning. I was saying this yesterday, like I'm still going down the rabbit hole of, because we keep stacking on like, well, okay, well now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do that. And it's like, okay, so the game keeps shifting. And so the goalposts kind of, they keep moving around and you have to keep following it. So all that being said, like, again, run a node, do all this. So I'm an economic actor in the system, and a lot of people are going to have nothing to do with going on. If you're just holding Bitcoin on an exchange, well, you're completely SOL. I would advise you to go get it off an exchange, self-custody, get your seed phrase, start learning how to run a node, stuff like that, and get plugged into the system. So that to me is but I want to see the debate at the end of the day. I want to see debate. I want to see people talking about it, and there's people that are very technical. I come from the more political revolutionary side and things of that nature, but it's, you got to listen to all sides and use your intuition at the end of the day. You watch the sides, learn, but see how people are acting. I mean, body language, how are they acting? That to me tells, humans, we forget to use those higher faculties at times. And that's where you're going to get a lot of what you need to know just by how people are acting, the body language, facial expressions, because I don't know who's telling the truth all the time. I don't know who's paid off. I don't know who's what, but follow the money and watch how people are acting. And it's going to tell you a lot about the directions that we need to go.
And the Bitcoin network will ultimately decide, right? Eventually,
Mm-hmm.
this will just be behind us. Either it will get adoption or it won't, and it will just fade. If it doesn't, that's what happens with a soft fork. If it doesn't get adoption, is it just can exist, persist, be run by some people, and if they're not important enough to the network, then it doesn't matter, right? TikTok next block, Bitcoin just continues on. So we'll see, I guess, this year. But we're going to see sort of I don't know if this is the interesting thing about Bitcoin is software. Bitcoin software always has the potential for bugs and always has the potential for improvements. So it's never going to end. This is never going to end. So if you're waiting on the sidelines because you're wondering about, oh, will Bitcoin become quantum resistant? Will something illicit get into the blockchain in some way that you don't like? I wouldn't wait any longer, because this is always going to be some fear that people will have, and it's basically unfounded because it cannot exist without those vulnerabilities, considering it's a software network.
The one thing, sorry, to cut everyone off here. The one thing someone said, co-live, do you all care about spam on blocks? We'd rather have a cleaner blocks. So this is, I believe Bitcoin is money. I believe it's a protocol outside the system. It's the greatest money we've ever had. Should it be some data storage, whatever, putting graffiti on there? Like, no, I don't believe that, because that's not there. I can do that anywhere. Like, I don't need to store the US Constitution on there, because I have books still to this day with the US Constitution on it. I have, physical copies of things. I don't need that. But to have money globally around the world, you need to have a digital ledger that it can be run by a lot of people with low data, generally speaking, and that a lot of people can run to increase decentralization of that system. And when you start putting more data on the chain, no matter whatever it is, that is when you start losing decentralization of said system. And again, there's the technology of technology is going to increase, so people will be able to run, have more bandwidth to use. But again, that's the line, kind of what we're talking about, where to me, it's money. The greatest thing we can do to reorient the entire system and get rid of a lot of the problems we're seeing in life is to fix the money, separate money from state, and then things start fixing themselves downstream naturally and organically. Like we've been given lately the Jesus in the temple, driving out the money changers. Do we not think that's analogous to what's going on today? My goodness. I mean, holy cow. Like, it was literally in there. Like, he's driving out and then what happened after that? The meek, the humble, the lame, the blind all started slowly coming back into the temple. And once he drove out the cartel. And so that's exactly what we're dealing with now. And all this stuff on the side is just complete shenanigans that's distracting us from the main thing, the very main thing that starts reorienting and cleaning up the stream. You can't have good fruit from a bad tree. So if you disrupt the money, if you have dishonest money, you're going to have dishonest society. And to me, that is the greatest sin we've committed to materially on this earth, maybe other than Adam and Eve. But doing that, what comes next after you say, I'm God? Well, you start saying, well, I'm God here too with the money. I'm going to create my own money and I'm going to start stealing from everyone else. All the sins start emanating from that. And so to me, that's the greatest good we could be doing. And that's frankly why I'm here. So to answer that question, yeah, I believe that should be something that we can decentralize. It's money. And where it goes from there, again, that's what we're talking about. I don't know everything, continually trying to learn, but if that's my center, that's my core at the end of the day, with where I'm coming from.
Did you know that that's the origin of the name knots, the Bitcoin node implementation?
I don't know if I did.
No, that's in that sentence in the Bible about Jesus getting the money changers out of the temple. He uses a rope of knots.
A rope of knots, yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that was because of that, though.
Yeah, that's the name,
origin
name.
And I think for me, Bitcoin is very hard to change by design. And it's funny, somebody in the chat about 5 minutes ago asked for book recommendations. And so I wanted to briefly bring this up because it's one I'm going through right now, which is 21 Lessons by Gigi. And if we think about it this way, Bitcoin is inherently very difficult to change by design. And there's a point in here where it says, to be considered truly leaderless, you must surrender the easy solution of having an entity that can designate one chain as the legitimate one. And so it kind of makes me think of yeah, it sucks right now that we have to go through all this. It sucks that we can't just have two people debate and then have one person decide who made the better point, which one makes sense for the network. But that's not what this is. This is a truly decentralized system. And so we have to fight about this stuff. This is all part of it. If you don't want to have somebody that says this is the chain or this is the better solution, then you have to fight about it. And the cool thing for me anyways, is that it's very difficult to change by design. And therefore, unless the overwhelming majority of people decide that they want to make a change, it just won't change. And it seems like to me, Bitcoin's working pretty good as it is. Obviously, I don't want crap on the blockchain, but I also don't want to change Bitcoin. So I think that the more conversation we can have about it, open debates, I think that's important. That's what we need. If we're going to have a truly decentralized system here, which Bitcoin is, you have to have that, because there's not one person here that says this is the better option. This person, and that's the thing, is if you had both BIP 110 and continue as usual, they both had their summaries, and you had one guy, even if it was AI, to say this is the better option, this is what we're going with. It'd be easier. But it's not an easy thing here. This is difficult by design. It's leaderless. And that means that there are going to be things that come up like this, and it probably won't end as long as we're alive here. So get used to it.
Yeah.
All right, guys,
Yep.
I got to head out. Really good session. Thank you so much for having
Jack,
me.
you're leaving already? Holy cow, man. We just got
Yeah, I
It
gotta
flew
go.
by. Thought we were like 30 minutes in. Jeez.
Yeah. Right,
Okay.
guys.
See you, Rajat.
See you, Rajat.
Enjoy your
Yes, sir,
orange,
brother.
orange slices.
Thanks, man. Bye for now.
See you, brother. Oh man,
That's great. He gets his orange license. Or what was that?
Orange
I don't know.
slices.
Someone
he
in
was
the
eating
chat
the
was chirping
orange.
about that.
Oh,
was eating
he was
orange
eating the
slices.
orange slices.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I was like, there's
He
an
was getting
orange
it.
license to get.
People are chirping him in the chat. Yeah, this
Maybe
is,
it's a good thing because you brought it up briefly, Joe. The making sure the Bitcoin is safe. If you want to talk about it, because I think it's very important to give the notice for people that yes, accumulation strategy is great. Yes, like making sure you make everything right, have a cash buffer and all of that. But it all doesn't matter if your Bitcoin is gone in the end of the day.
So I mean, I think it was last month, the product head of X came out and said that his prediction was that within 90 days, the internet was basically going to become unusable because of spam and AI agents kind of taking over. And I'll just say, I'm not going to give away too much information today, but I had a couple key accounts get hacked this morning. And it's, I know a lot of people in my life that would have maybe a fraction of the, what would you call it, how strong your password is and how they're kept. And I got hit. I mean, I'm a target probably because I'm on YouTube and stuff like that. But I just want people to be aware of it. I want you to take this very seriously. And thankfully, it was only some sats that I had on Lightning Wallet on the internet. But I just want people to kind of go under the assumption that everything that you have is going to be taken from you online. Bitcoin and self-custody, much different story, especially if you got a passphrase around it. If you have it encrypted, even better. But anything that's online, whether it's emails, history, Lightning, sats, accounts on different things, just assume that it's going to be hacked because that's where we are right now. It costs almost nothing to scour the internet, to target specific people, to get information out of them. And this information has been floating around, especially if you have a ledger or if you're a Coinbase user. But anyways, my point is gonna take a very good inventory of your online footprint that you have right now. If you've been using the same password for the last 10 years, consider that you're hacked. You're going to be hacked. If they haven't done it yet, they probably will soon. And you got to take this stuff seriously because it's not going to slow down. It's going to ramp up. And if you have anything meaningful, important, sensitive, you need to take this as seriously as possible. And you don't have very long, I don't think. So understand where we're going. Bitcoin is going to be a solution to this, I think, in order to, verify yourself, prove real, bringing energy from physical to digital. But you got to look after yourself and just don't take anything for granted online. Make sure that everything is as airtight as you can make it. And I learned my lesson today, and thankfully it was a small lesson, but it's something I think about every day. I talk about every day, and it's still like I still feel very vulnerable and susceptible to it because I don't know what's lurking out there, boys. It's scary.
Yeah. So keep your Bitcoin offline. Keep your private keys offline. Generated offline stays offline. Use a good password manager. Don't reuse passwords. That's the easiest hack possible. Is creating a fake website where they trick you into putting in your password, and most people reuse passwords, and then they get your data off of a data broker. They see what websites you've signed up for, and then with what email, and then they just try that password in every single one of them until they gain access to other accounts. It's a really, really easy hack. The internet is, we literally don't know if the whatever president or prime minister of Israel is alive right now.
Yeah.
We literally don't know if he's alive right now. And the video circulating of him being alive is being dissected by everybody. It's saying this is AI, this is not AI. It's caused so much confusion of whether this huge world event has happened or not because of how uncertain reality is on the internet now at this point. So that's just going to get harder and harder to discern as an individual whether what you're looking at is real or not. So if you can keep your private keys offline, that's going to protect you entirely from that risk vector of the internet becoming harder and harder to navigate.
Wild. It's funny because again, like we've been saying for 2 decades now, don't trust everything you see on the internet. Now you literally can't trust anything you see on the internet. It's which is great because as a Bitcoiner, it's great for us because it was already, trust but verify, or don't trust, verify, that type of mentality, right? And now the world is waking up to that. And I've seen, I don't know if it was Scott Adams before he passed away, or if it was, Nolan Bowerly, one of our own Bitcoiner, saying that this year going forward was going to be the year of auditing. Audit was the word. And what better word as a Bitcoiner to have people being exposed everywhere, whether it's the files coming out, AI, having people, training people to understand that, yeah, you need to be auditing things. You have to, whether it's the vote, the SAFE Act that's trying to be passed here in America, and you have Chuck Schumer up there like, well, there's literally going to purge millions of people from the rolls, like saying the quiet part out loud. It's truly wild, but people are slowly waking up to this. And unfortunately for us, like it doesn't happen overnight. People don't just see Bitcoin overnight. They can't just audit things overnight, but we're getting there. Like directionally, that's why I've been telling people too. I think I said this last week to you guys, but 20 years ago, I was very political. And if you would have told me 95% of what's going on in the world right now is happening currently, I would have laughed you out of the room. Like the richest guy in the world talking about all, conspiracy theories, and we're talking about the money flows, who's controlling the president. That was unheard of 20 years ago. Totally taboo, totally unheard of. And it was just out of the realm of 99.999% of people. So we're directionally going the right way. And it's just unfortunate, I guess, to a degree. Maybe there'd be mass chaos. I mean, maybe if we were really quickly going the route Bitcoiners are going, there'd probably be a lot of chaos in that way too, because, entrepreneurial, visionary type people, early adopters tend to be very just like, hey, we're going here and then we're going there. We're doing this, we're doing that. I'm sure there's a reason, there's a rhyme and a reason for it, nature's law, and it's just going to play out the way it's supposed to. But we're going the right direction. We're going to win, guys. We're going to win.
And I asked myself the question of like, if we're entering a world where you cannot verify anything on the internet, like every video can be fake, even slowly robotics, like it gets almost harder to trust in-person things. Like if the robots get really good, masks get really good, body composition gets really good, where there's a person walking down the road and you couldn't tell without stabbing in the stomach if he's a robot or a human being. I think we get to that point at some point. What's the worth of something that you can verify, like Bitcoin? Like what is the worth of that in an AI world? I think it's truly there's a reason why some of the AI people really swear on Bitcoin. There was this, I think a half a year or 4 months ago, something like that, on Diary of the CEO, this random AI guy. And I listened to the podcast, just like it was a full AI podcast. Host was not a Bitcoiner. I mean, he has some Bitcoin, but he's not a Bitcoiner at all. And he was not like outspoken a Bitcoin or something like that. And the host just asked him, Stephen just asked him after 1 hour 10 or something like that, hey, 2035, 2045, what is one thing you should do to get ready for this AI world? And he just says, buy Bitcoin. Just like randomly puts it out there. And like he explains it like, Bitcoin is the only thing that the AI will not be able to manipulate. It's literally the only thing. So I think even that message of it's verifiable in a world where nothing else is verifiable, where there's a person standing in front of you and you're not 100% sure is this a robot or like an actual human being.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big part of the internet in the future. And Jason Lowery's talked about this before on Twitter. He basically said, and this has been the thesis for a while now, is that everything's going to become unusable. You're not going to know what's real, what's fake. It's going to be so cheap to, unleash hell on anybody. And comment sections, and the four of us, I'm sure, see it every day, where you open up you post a video and there's 100 comments under there. And you're like, do I spend 10 minutes getting rid of these, or do I just like dirty up my channel here and make people have to sift through them?
Yeah.
And so I think that the cool thing about Bitcoin is that it allows for micropayments where you could post a video and say, if somebody wants to leave a comment on this, they got to pay 1 sat. And it's like a fraction of a penny today, or the equivalent of a fraction of a penny. It doesn't have to be anything significant. You're using a currency that cannot be created out of thin air to prove that you are a real person. And you might say, well, whoever has the most Bitcoin can manipulate things. Well, yeah, for a while, but they're going to run out eventually. And that's the whole point of using Bitcoin for that versus fiat, because politicians can't print more Bitcoin to unleash their propaganda on people. So that's where Bitcoin comes into the equation here. I just fear that people themselves are taking this lightly, especially with Bitcoin. And, you know, I learned a lesson this morning. Thankfully, it wasn't a big lesson, but enough for me to change path and not let it happen again. But just be careful out there, especially if you got sats online on an exchange, on a Lightning wallet that you have a password to. Just be careful, because they're probably going to be gone sometime soon, unless you make some change soon.
Yeah, and Bitcoin is the most obvious, possibly top thing that is becoming more and more scarce over time, while everything becomes more and more abundant, right? There might be things that become relatively scarce, but not as scarce. I think Bitcoin is right at the top there. It's getting more and more difficult to acquire Bitcoin. It's reflected in the price. Of course, the price is volatile all over the place, but over time, it's going up beyond anything else. And people will say, well, NVIDIA did really well. Well, guess what happens when that happens is they issue more shares. There's more stock-based compensation. It's pretty easy for NVIDIA as a company to create more shares. Nobody can do that in Bitcoin. There's 3.125 new Bitcoin being released every 10 minutes. And in 2028, it's going to be half that. So it gets more and more scarce over time. And everybody talks about the abundance we're going to live in. We're going to have universal high income because of AI, all this kind of stuff. That only happens because things are getting easier to acquire, easier to make. And it's definitely true. Like I know just from like personal experience, like editing thumbnails, editing videos, I do all of that with AI now. And it's like, why would I have a subscription to Adobe? Why would I need to spend time creating these photos anymore when I can just use AI to do it? And that's abundance. That's something easier happening because of AI, and it's taking market share from those things. So everything is at threat of AI, in my opinion, and robotics, as Robin mentioned as well. Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is going to be the beneficiary of that abundance that comes into the world. It's actually going to benefit the most over time because of the abundance.
I love that point so much. I'll just quickly take a moment for showing you guys our YouTube channels, because I think we've made a huge progress. I think we pushed from like 20 or 30 subscribers to 150 now within a week, which is
last week.
Yeah, like that was amazing. And so if you're not, and a special shout out to like the 10 guys that already watch the whole episode live on the channel. I think last week we had like 2 people. Now we have 10 people. That's amazing. So if you haven't done it, just go out there. BTC Mastermind. It's way easier now to search. I've tested it out. First, it was like very hard to search because you had to scroll down like a lot. It gets easier, but just search that handle exactly as it is. It gets easier, especially with the youtube.com at BTC Mastermind. I think it's a good way to get there. So just wanted to quickly shout out the channel, because slowly but surely we will move our chats to there, and yeah, looking forward to that.
Good call. Forrest just shared it in the private chat there, so we should be able to share it for people to go check out. Yeah, ideally we want to have everybody in the same spot. That's the end goal with this, is to have everybody in one spot so everybody can see the comments. We don't have to bring them up on screen, and so hopefully sooner than later. But shout out to everybody who has subscribed over there.